Good evening. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. I'm, of course, Rita Lazo. Welcome. Today is the 15th of May, according to the old calendar. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. We have a few saints today, but we'll start off with Saint Colman, who only has an entry in the book, and then we'll move on to a couple of others that have entries outside of the book. Saint Colman Kontakion, or Saint Colman of Oughaval, and he is from the 6th century. Saint Colman, also known as Saint Columbanus, was a disciple of Saints Columba, who we commemorate on the 9th of June, and Fintan of Clonay, who we commemorate on the 3rd of January. After spending several years at Ionia, he was blessed by St. Columba to return to Ireland as the founding abbot of a monastery in Oughaval in County Laois. St. Columba is said to have had a vision which revealed the time of St. Colman's repose. He is also the patron of St. Colman of Oughaval Orthodox Church in Stradbally in County Laois. He does have a Kontakion, which I will add to the thingy for you. So, Kontakion Tone 2. Shining bastion of the faith and warrior against the passions, O Father Colman, thou art the adornment of Oughaval, where following the guidance of the great abbots Columba and Fintan, thou didst establish a monastic beacon to illuminate Leinster. We honour thee, we hymn thee, and we praise thy name, rejoicing in thy glorious memory. His entry in the group chat is as follows. St. Colman was a disciple of St. Columba, abbot of Ionia, and St. Fintan, abbot of Clonan. In the martyrology of Talag, he is included as Colman H. Leixi on the 15th of May. He was of the clan of Laoighsigh, Sean Moore, son of Conall Cernach, a celebrated Ultonian hero who lived in the 1st century. His father was Lugna and his grandfather was Eugene. Their tribe name was Macua-Logsi. The first mention of St. Colman, a pious youth and native of Portalois area in the province of Leinster, is in the life of St. Fintan of Clonay. He desired to dedicate his whole life to the service of Christ in prayer and ascetic labour. To this end, he made a pilgrimage to Ionia to seek spiritual counsel from the renowned abbot of that holy island, St. Columba. He remained at Ionia for several years as a novice, learning the disciplines of monastic life. Later, Colman left the call to return to Ireland, and he asked St. Columba how it would be possible to live there without being able to confess his sins to his abbot. St. Columba said, "Go to that pious man whom I see standing among the angels and before the tribunal of Christ." And each Sunday night, Colman asked, "Who and what sort of man is he?" And the holy abbot answered, "There is a certain saintly and handsome man in your part of the country, whose complexion is florid, whose eyes are brightly sparkling, and whose white locks of hair are thinly scattered on his head." To this Colman replied, "I know of no man answering this description in my country except Abbot Fintan." Then St. Columba confirmed, "He it is, my son, whom I see before the tribunal of Christ. As I have already told you, go to him, for he is a true shepherd of Christ's flock, and he shall bring many souls with him to the kingdom of Christ." St. Colman received the blessing of St. Columba and set out on his journey to his native land. Coming to St. Fintan, Colman told him all that day about the holy abbot of Ionia had said. On hearing these things, the elderly abbot blushed deeply, so it seemed as though his face was on fire. He cautioned Colman not to report these things to anyone, at least during his own lifetime. Colman selected Oughaval, a townland within the present-day parish of Stradbally in County Laois, as the site of his County Lewis, as the site of his monastic settlement. The exact date of the founding of the monastery is unknown, but it was shortly before the repose of St. Fintan in about the year 595. The place can still be identified, and the burial ground is still in use. However, it is impossible to recognise the actual church or monastic building, since the stone was reused at the beginning of the 18th century to build a mausoleum. Our next saint of the day will be St. Britwin of Beverley, who was an abbot. He died 733 when St. John of Beverley resigned his bishopric at York. His good friend abbot St. Britwin received him into the monastery at Breverin. Our next saint will be Saint Gerabernus Martyr, also known as Geraborn, Gerabrand, and Gerabrard, 7th century. As an aged Irish priest, Gerabernus accompanied St. Dymphna, who we will be speaking about after, whom he had baptised in her infancy to Belgium and shared in her martyrdom at Gihil. He is the patron saint of the village of Sunsbeck, Cleves, in the Rhineland, Germany, where his relics are enshrined, except for his head, which is in Geel. Curiously, he was the subject of holy robbers of Xantan, who specialised in stealing holy relics. Although they were unable to remove those of Dymphna, his intercession is sought against gout and fever. And finally, we have Saint Dymphna, whose icon we also have available here. Saint Dymphna of Geel, Martyr, also known as Dymphna or Dymphny, and sometimes is also referred to as Daphne. As far as I'm aware, Daphne also comes from her, and she's sometimes referred to as Saint Daphne. Anyway, died in 650. Dymphna is said to have been the daughter of a pagan Irish, British, or Amorican king, Amorican king, and a Christian princess who died when she was very young, but who had baptized her daughter. As St. Dymphna grew into a young woman, her uncanny resemblance to a dead mother aroused an incestuous passion in her father. On advice of her confessor, St. Gerabernus, who we just talked about, Dymphna fled from home, accompanied by Gerabernus and attended by the court jester and his wife. She took a ship to Antwerp. She then travelled through the wild forest country until she reached a small oratory dedicated to St. Martin on the site of the present-day town of Geel, 25 miles from Antwerp. The group settled there to live as hermits during the several months before they were found. Dymphna gained a reputation for her holiness because of her devotion to the poor and suffering. Dymphna's father had pursued her to Antwerp, and he sent spies who found them by tracing their use of foreign coins. The king tried to persuade her to return, but when she refused, the king ordered that she and Gerabernus be killed. The king's men killed the priest, and their companions hesitated to kill Dymphna. The king himself struck off her head with his sword. The bodies were left on the ground. They were buried by angelic or human hands on the site where they had perished. The whole story gripped the imagination of the whole countryside, especially because, according to tradition, lunatics were cured at her grave. Great interest in her cultus was renewed and spread, where the translation of the relics of Dymphna was followed by the cures of a number of epileptics, lunatics, and persons under evil influences who had visited the shrine. Under her patronage, the inhabitants of Geel have been known for the aid they have given to those with mental illnesses. By the close of the 13th century, an infirmary was built. Today, the town possesses a first-class sanatorium, one of the first and most efficient colonies for the mentally ill in the world. It was one of the first to initiate a program through which patients live normal and useful lives in their homes or farmers or local residents, whom they assist in their labour and whose family life they share. The strength of Dymphna's cultus is evidenced by the passionate work of the people of Geel for the mentally ill at a time when they were universally neglected or treated with hostility. May those saints intercede for us before the righteous judge. I will write up St. Colman's Kontakion in the description. God bless you all. Christ is risen. And I will have a great liturgy of the Ascension / Ascension Day tomorrow. God bless you all, and Amen.